Welcome to the Mavericks podcast. In this episode, I am yet again alone with a marker and a board. And I have been thinking about a topic today that I've been putting off. So we are going to get into it because I got tired of sitting here. Anyways, what I want to look at today is how I want to put stories together and how other speakers put stories together when they're speaking and trying to share valuable information. For me, I've always just told stories. Not necessarily anything to learn behind them, not necessarily always for entertainment, maybe some sort of underlying purpose in there. But nevertheless, I've always been kind of a storyteller. So what I want to do is be able to put stories together in a way that adds value, that grabs attention and provides something of value for the audience, right? Whoever the audience may be, if it's one-on-one, if it's coaching, or yet again on stage. I want to be able to put something together that's better than what I've done before, because I have spoken before, and I'll tell you this, and I spoke for 4 minutes and something seconds, and I got 3 points across in that time, which you want to take about 2 to 3 minutes per point, theoretically, maybe 5 minutes. And I shot that part out of the park, but I didn't tell good stories or a really good attention-grabbing moment. And these were kids, sure, but it was about communication. And in my opinion, looking back at it now, oh boy, my communication was not the best when it came to that. But I didn't know any better, right? Because, again, this was my first talk ever, and they were supposed to have it recorded, but unfortunately it did not get recorded. So I do not have that event to show. But I learned a lot from that experience. And this being, I think, over a year ago now, it was right when I was doing, I think, episode 6, which was Healthy Confrontation. So I spoke on the podcast, and then I went, I think, the next day or two and spoke on that topic. Like, way shortened version, but again, I tried my best, right? What I was thinking on is how speakers structure their stories. And the one thing that keeps coming to mind is how they introduce their stories. So it's like the introduction. And what I'm seeing is they'll either point out exactly what they're going to go over, like a quick, let's say, hey, I have these 3 points on healthy confrontation, which is what I did in that one speaking event. And I laid them out and started with the first one, of course, but I didn't have a good story. So in this case, you typically want 1 point for one story, or one story for 1 point. I did not do that. I did one story for 3 points, which you can also do. Maxwell, one of the videos that I saw of him, he did use one story for 3 points, but he's also a lot better than me. So, the introduction is an interesting thing because you want to grab attention, you want to grab curiosity. So maybe you could start with a question, right? Oops. So we could start with a question, or even a title could have a question, like what I've been doing the last couple episodes. So if we're starting with a question, it leaves something to be answered. And if you look at social media or like news programs, even recently, the NFL or football stuff, they have these questions along the bottom of the screen. And for me, I'm like, I would never ask that question. But for people that are into the game, they see that question and like, oh my goodness, I never thought about that. What is the answer to this question? And it sparks that curiosity. So you have question asking at the very beginning, which a lot of people do in news, headlines, stuff like that. There's also videos now on social media are doing where they show you the very interesting part, the very end of the interesting part at the very beginning of the video, and then you watch it and then it loops back to the beginning, which is another thing that you can do. So you start with that. That's attention grabbing, right? So we're grabbing that attention and then playing the whole video, and then it makes you want to watch it again because it loops back, and then you're already watching it again, so you might as well watch it again, right? Or at least that's what I do. So it's an attention grabber, and it also gives you a chance to, I wouldn't say summarize, but I guess introduce the idea of the story, the main idea of the story. Then, of course, you have the story itself, where you, of course, want to make it interesting, humorous, and in my case, we'll say perspective shifting. And I say that because that's what I like to do. I like to shift perspectives. It gets you thinking. It keeps you curious, and that's what I've always done, at least to myself, and what I've done with other people around me. So that's probably more specific to me. So I'll circle that. During the story, you obviously want to have enough detail, but also keep it short. So that's kind of like the part that I feel like I'm going to struggle with the most, is making the right amount of content for a story. And I say story like informational story, not like an Instagram story or Facebook story, whatever you call them. So this is a story that I would post, or a story that I would speak on stage about, something like that. Which I have already started my database, so I'm doing better than I was 2 days ago. And I better keep adding in, because I'm going to need at least one a day. So I'm sure stories can be broken down into different things, different sections, I guess you could say. Kind of like what I talked about in the analyzing of content video that I did right before this episode, I believe. Because that one talks about humor, keeping that influence, your body language, your words, spacing, and all that good stuff. Right, so the better I can do that, I feel like the stories would fall into place a little bit better. I don't know why I said that as a question, but that's what I believe, right? And then the last, I don't know, the last to my knowledge is summarizing what you said. Or actually, not the last. I'm going to make the points known. And I could be wrong in this, but that's what I want to do. Make the points known. Right, so like maybe repeating the last part of the story that gives off that aha moment that makes you learn. I said make the points. I don't know how to spell. Make the points. What was I saying? Make the points again. I don't know. Make the points again. Readdress, right? Readdress as you're going along the story. So maybe you go one point in the story that's important. Readdress it. Kind of like repetition. So like when people are, I don't know, I lost my point. But make the points again. And it could be just summarizing, because that's what I was going to put at the end anyways. But when I go through something, I try and help the other person understand what perspective I'm trying to offer. Right, so that's where I kind of say make the points again. And then I would say 4 is summarize. Summarize the entire story and what you went over. So I guess if you're speaking, so what we went over. Summarize. With humor. With humor or emotion. I like that. Because emotion sticks. So I think that would be a pretty good. I mean, I'm not sure on number 3 with making the points again, but it doesn't feel wrong. It just could be summarizing, right? So you could argue it's the same thing. And maybe it is the same thing. It's the same thing if it's at the end, I'll say that. But if you do number 3 throughout number 2, then maybe it's a little different. So it's, or maybe we don't make the points again, we rephrase the points in a different way. So have multiple ways of saying one thing throughout the story. Because sometimes one wording doesn't work for other people, so you end up rephrasing. So let's say rephrase. Rephrase main ideas throughout. Because I find that helps me in personal communication skills. Because oftentimes our definitions of words aren't exactly the same as someone else's definition of that same word. Which, if that doesn't make sense to you, it's something I learned as I've talked to many, many, many different people. So if I say belief, especially, is one of those words, I have a different opinion on belief than most people, and what that belief actually means to the furthest extent. Which I'm actually, I have a plan to make a podcast on that specific topic. And then I'll probably go into action as well, just because I'm in a big action taking mood. At least recently. So I want to be able to address that. And I say that too because literally today I've been sitting here contemplating on whether or not to make a recording, but I have nothing else going. Nothing else that I'm doing, at least right now. And then I've just been sitting here for like the last 2 hours contemplating, not taking action, but it kept bugging me, right? So eventually I did it, because we're here now, right? Or at least I am. But I would say, I think that's good. Introduction. Introduce the main points. Say, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. Or like with the sermon that I listened to the other day, he laid out a sentence that had 3 points in it, and then the 45-minute talk went through those 3 points. So it's like the introduction. Then you have the story. Of course, you go through the multiple stories that lead to the same conclusion. And I say multiple stories because there's a book that I have called, Robert Greene, I think, does a good job of storytelling. He shows, usually from what I've seen, how something goes wrong and then how it can go right if you use the right tactics. And I think that's a good way to do it, like multiple stories that verify that same purpose. So if you can do multiple stories around one thing, awesome. But for the most part, the story, interesting, you want curiosity, humorous, perspective shifting, get people to ask questions, be curious. 3, rephrase main ideas throughout. That's just a me thing. So that's more for You can say it's conversational, which is how you want a speaking talk, I think, or a talk to go. Because it's kind of a dialogue, right? You want it to seem like you're connecting. You want to be as close as you can to those people in the audience. And then if you can do that, it makes it feel more conversational. So I think that's what we want. Rephrasing ideas. So you say, hey, this is belief. And what I mean by this, blank, right? Extend it. It takes a little longer, but I think or I believe it's a good way to get across to people. It keeps misunderstandings from happening, in my experience. And then summarize. Summarize often, or summarize with humor or emotion to make it stick with them, to allow it to stick with them, whoever you're talking to. Humor's a good one too. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this one. Again, these are kind of just solo talks right now, up until the beginning of the year probably. But if you guys are enjoying this, this is awesome. I enjoy it. It helps me get things done, honestly, just talking things out. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.